semen retention is like one of those things where it wouldn't really do it justice for me to try to sit here and verbally explain what it feels like, what the experience is like. It's something that you really got to do for yourself and see how your body reacts to it, what your biology is like when you do it. But I want to try my best to talk a little bit about my experience. I've been toying with doing this video for a while, but there's just so much content on it, on semen retention, and it's all kind of saying the same stuff. So what I wanted to do is kind of give my insight a little bit and my own personal perspective on this, because it's been a really amazing journey. And I want to hopefully encourage other people to get into this, because quitting porn and masturbation and not being a slave to sex is like one of the best things that you could possibly do for yourself. I mean, I can't stress that enough. So I've been on this journey for about 4 years now. I probably got into like the no-fap semen retention thing about 4 years ago. And it was extremely challenging at first. Like, I couldn't do it at all. I really wanted to better myself because I was very addicted to porn, and I've always been into personal development. So I really liked the whole idea around it of like, I was always into anything that's going to kind of take me to the next level. I've been like that since I was young. And I guess it's just something I stumbled upon probably on the internet. I probably heard people talk about it. Definitely not in my everyday life. Probably was definitely on the internet. And it just appealed to me. And I was like, this is something I want to try. This is something I want to do. And I did. And I can't remember exact details from back then, but I probably didn't make it very far at first. I probably tried it a bunch of times, made multiple attempts. But eventually I do remember, I got it. I went to periods where I was going like a few weeks at a time and then a few months at a time. That's the thing. It's like a long progression. You might go periods without doing any of it, do on semen retention, and then you don't, and then you relapse or whatever, and then you get back on it. And every time you get back to it, you're going to go a little bit longer. It's like a very long race, right? So yeah, I want to talk a little bit about that. I was watching porn from a very young age, just like most of us. I have my notes here too, so if I keep looking down, that's why. I was watching porn from a very young age, around probably 13 when I discovered it on the internet. And what you come to realize is how wired your brain becomes to just for consuming that to just become normal. And it's not normal for a 13-year-old to watch stuff like that, or to even really be having sex or to be thinking about sex, I think. Is an extremely young age. Not that I think there's anything wrong with it per se. I just think it can sort of, I think it can cause a lot of problems. I think it can cause a lot of things like social anxiety. It can cause a lot of depression. It can cause a lot of low self-esteem, low self-worth, the way that you view women and things like that. So that's my take on that. I don't think it's something that really anybody should probably be watching, but who am I to say what's morally or ethically wrong? I just know for me that not watching it is what works, So I was always craving it, from ages of 13 to like 26. It was probably pretty consistent for me. And yeah, around 26 is probably when I got into this whole thing. And I remember of just like, not even being able to find regular girls attractive, not being able to even have sex with them because my mind was so stuck on this shit. And it was sad, and that's probably why I'm always the type of person, if something in my life is not working for me, I'm trying to figure a way out of it. I'm trying to figure a way to better myself, to climb out of the hole that I'm in. And this was probably exactly the case with this, right? So, like I said, I can't really remember like the specifics too much, but I do remember I kept trying it, and it was something that I really liked. Like the periods of time where I would go, like maybe a month or two, I really liked how I felt. And just to get that out of the way, like all of the benefits that everyone else talks about are definitely true. The increased confidence, you have a lot of energy. I felt more detached. I felt more motivated. all of those are definitely accurate in my experience. And so I'm 31 now. So between the ages of 26 and 31, I would probably go through phases. I would probably do semen retention for a while, maybe a couple of months. And then maybe I would start watching porn again, or maybe I would start dating somebody and break it, or I would have a one night stand or something like that. So that's the thing you got to remember about this journey. No matter if you're having a lot of difficulty with it, that's normal. And the progression isn't going to be a straight increasing line. It's going to fluctuate a lot, But you got to understand that overall it's moving upward. Even though it goes like this, it's still moving up. And you got to always remember that. As long as you keep your head in the game and you keep trying, it's always going to be progressing in a positive direction. So there's a couple of things that I really liked about it the most that, I'm still experiencing to this day. And these are the ones that I wanted to talk about. I'm sure other people have mentioned these as well, but these are kind of my own personal insights. And these are the reasons that I really liked it the most. You sort of have like this childlike mentality, or like this childlike wonder around the world, because you don't realize how addicted to sex you are until you're not anymore. You know what I mean? And you gotta, like, if you're gonna do semen retention, you gotta detach yourself from everything sexual, like obviously porn, masturbating, having sex. Even like I would avoid, sexual movies, like even things like that. I really personally think that that's the way it should be done. And what you realize after about a month or two is that you feel like a kid again. I mean, that's the best way I can describe it. In a good way, not like you're childish. You're just more interested. Like, think about the way that a child is. Like, they're always just like happy and interested, and they don't have this addiction. Like, they're not a slave to these thoughts, and it's not just like weighing them down, right? They don't even know what sex is. They're just enjoying life. And you kind of get that back again, or at least I did anyway. And I feel like I just enjoy life so much more, and I feel like a weight has sort of been lifted off of me. That's hands down like my favorite part of this whole thing. And that's not really, you can't really argue like, oh, that's not true. That's not going to happen. Like it is. You can't really deny it. Like, of course it's not. When your mind isn't constantly consuming porn and thinking about sex and, constantly chasing women and all this other stupid nonsense, it's going to happen 100%. I mean, it has to, The other thing I love about semen retention is just the time you get back. That's one benefit that also can't be denied. Like, just to think like, oh wow, I did something that no one else is really, that not many people are really doing. I spent all my time doing something that I love. I didn't spend my time like sitting in my bedroom like a depressed weirdo, watching sex on a screen, and pleasuring myself to it. You get all that time back. And you feel a sense of pride, I guess, when you realize that you saved all that time. You know what I mean? You accomplished something that's very challenging. I mean, the sexual instinct is so strong, and it's something to be proud of if you've accomplished. If you've gone periods of time where sex wasn't a part of your life, whether it was through thoughts or physical sex or porn or whatever, or masturbation. I mean, I think that that's a really huge accomplishment. And that's one of the things I love most about it. You just feel so free from it, The other thing is you start to gain control over that reptilian part of your brain. Not just with sex, but with other things too. So like the part of your brain that's constantly craving, money and fame and power and attention. This semen retention journey will overflow. Once you start getting control over that, over your sexual urges, it'll overflow into other areas of your life, and you'll start gaining control over, in my opinion, or at least it'll become easier to gain control over all the other urges in life. The urges to maybe do wrong things because you want to get ahead, or to treat people badly because of your ego. Just sort of that like monkey mind that we have that does all this stupid shit, the ego. Have found that when you're on this journey, you're much more spiritually connected with life. You're much more spiritually connected with other people. And you gain a lot of self-awareness on this journey, and you start taking things into consideration, and you start seeing things for what they really are. When you were constantly chasing porn and sex and consuming all of that, you weren't really thinking too clearly. And maybe you were hyper-focused on money. Maybe you were hyper-focused on getting, female attention, or whatever your thing was. We all have them, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you bring it out into the light and you start putting your awareness on it, you start seeing it starts to diminish, it starts to go away, and you start really getting in touch with your true self and like what your true self actually wants. We all just really want to be happy, and we're not going to find that through all of those sort of ego things, money, fame, and sex. Those things can never make us happy, and I know this because I've experienced it firsthand. I realized through a series of trial and error that casual sex doesn't do anything for me anymore. It actually makes me feel more depressed. In the past couple of years, I've had a handful of sort of one night stand experiences, and they made me feel so empty. Like, they just made me feel so fucking empty. And that's the kind of stuff you'll start realizing about yourself when you really engage in this journey. And, it's a beautiful thing. So just some tips and advice. Don't worry so much about the benefits or achieving some end goal. This is actually only, in my experience, will only make it harder on yourself. You want to enjoy the journey for what it is. You want to celebrate the small wins. Like every time you were able to battle an urge, every time you went and jumped in a cold shower or went for a run instead of indulging in that. That's really important, Those little small wins. Don't focus so much on how many days or, what are you going to feel like when I get to this certain time? Like, just stay very present with it. That's what makes it fun. Like it's hard, it's challenging, but it's a really fun journey, and you really want to enjoy it, And just to be clear, like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with focusing on benefits or, wanting to get, setting goals for yourself to get to a certain number of days. Those things are fine. You just don't want to get too caught up in them, because I feel like it makes it only harder. That was my experience, but I'm curious to hear about yours. So, feel free to leave it in the comments below. Another really important thing is you want to get in touch with your physical body and your emotions. You really want to learn to sit down and, get into a meditative state. Really, really feel your emotions. Like, really get in touch with that inner body of awareness. I found that to be extremely helpful, because a lot of emotions are going to come up. They're going to surface. Anger, maybe rejection from the past. All of these things may come up on this journey, and it's really important to face them when they do and not ignore them. Learn to just sit and be with the way that you feel, whether it's your urges or whether it's something else that's coming up for you. Learn to just to sit there and just be one with it, and just don't resist. Just let everything come up. I'm telling you, this is extremely powerful. You also don't want semen retention to become a crutch or an escape. So you might say, if you've never had a girlfriend, if you've never had sex before, you don't want to say like, oh, those things aren't important to me because I'm on semen retention. I've definitely done this. A lot of people probably do this. You don't want it to become just another reason to not face the difficulties of life. I suggest you still practice, depending on where you are in your journey. This is just my experience and my opinion. You got to figure out what works for you, but I don't think that you should completely abandon the idea of having sex or, finding a girlfriend if these are things that you truly want out of life. Don't take semen retention and try to lie to yourself and say, I'm going to be on semen retention, so I don't care about any of that. Don't do that. Be honest with yourself. If you have trouble, if you are still a virgin, or you haven't really had sex, or you haven't had a girlfriend, you haven't had any physical intimacy, just be honest with yourself and, do what you have to overcome that. It's going to be challenging. But the most challenging things in life are the most rewarding. So it's just something to think about. Yeah, so I think that's basically it. I just wanted to share some of my thoughts with you guys. I hope this video was helpful. I'm only at like 30 days now, but I feel really good. I feel really energized. I wake up every day feeling very motivated, very ambitious. It's not just from the semen retention. That's the other thing too. Semen retention in itself isn't going to do all these amazing things. It's going to be a combination of a lot of things. It's going to be like the meditating, the exercising, having a lot of self-awareness and starting to face all of your insecurities and bring these things out into the light. That's all really important. So